I woke up from a tiny, almost innocent sound, the click of a charging plug, as if someone had removed a thin sleep mask from a phone. I didn't open my eyes. I learned to recognize the timbre of night sounds and pretend to be quieter than silence. The light in the bathroom immediately hissed like the surf and disappeared behind the half-open door. The water didn't turn on. Only the rustle of footsteps penetrating under the crack in the door and the familiar heartbeat in my ears, a duplicate of what was happening in my chest. Max doesn't slam doors. He always does everything carefully, almost tenderly, even when he goes to the bathroom at night with my phone, as if he's afraid that a sharp sound will offend not me, but our sleeping walls. Probably he thinks that I'm sleeping. Maybe this is what he wants. For me to sleep while he scrolls through my life. When we first met, he was mostly about caring. Have you eaten? Pass me the heavy package. Send me where you are, just so I don't get nervous. He cared enough for both of us, and I liked it, after my life had been dominated by other people's indifference for so long. And then there was his past scar, an engagement in his 20s and a sudden breakup. She left almost immediately for another man, and in Max's head this forever turned into a formula. Silence, betrayal. I thought it would die down with time. I thought love would heal this place. I thought a lot back then and saw little. The first time thunder struck was completely absurd. We were at my parents'. He fell asleep before me. I, like a fool, scrolled through TikToks in the dark, and some ancient photo popped up in Google Photos. Absurd, intimate, abandoned. I could have just closed it. But the next morning I was struck not so much by a feeling of shame as by his gaze, cold, wet like a towel that they forgot to wring out. He didn't speak. He was being merciful with anger. And only later, when I was explaining with trembling hands where this photo came from and why it was there, when my ears were already burning, he snapped, "I thought you—" He didn't finish, I understood without words. We both cried, like people who suddenly discovered that there were different floors in the same house. I brought him my phone, password, logins. "Look," I said, "if it makes you feel better." He pushed me away as if I had given him something dirty. "I don't need it." But since then, when I go to bed later, I always whispered, "I'll flip through it some more just to fall asleep. Okay?" He nodded, and we fell asleep as if we had agreed. Then there was the story with John Doe, although John Doe is of course not his name. It's funny to remember how I woke up from the same tone as today. I was jolted awake by the question, "Who is John Doe?" Max asked in the voice of a person who does not ask a question, presents evidence I didn't even immediately realize where I was and who I was, and he was already showing me my phone, a request for subscribers on Instagram, and "It took me a really long time to find you." And yes, we once matched, and yes, we never met, and yes, I have long forgotten. But what appeared on the screen was not the forgotten, but his offensive found, as if I was hiding. Then I cleaned up half of my digital past, subscriptions, correspondence, photos, as if I was doing a general cleaning of the house before the arrival of the sanitary commission. He nodded, became quiet for a couple of days, and then became again, "Have you eaten?" and "Send it when you're home," and I decided that everything was going well. And now this new, almost daily ritual, at night. A click, footsteps, the bathroom. Sometimes he takes the phone there. Sometimes, like yesterday, he stays close, thinking that I don't care. I can, it seems, draw a map of his movements by touch. The way he carefully takes the phone, the way my face flashes on the screen. Not mine, but a tiny round version of me in messengers. The way he holds his breath, reading my daytime words to other people. It's strange. I gave him everything. Access, permissions, watch whenever you want. And he only watches when I dream. For a long time, I pretended that it didn't hurt me. I made excuses. It's not him. It's his past. It's not him. It's fear. It's not him. It's just a phase. But at some point, the excuses ran out of words. What was left was a prickly feeling that I was being watched out of love. And another truth that I didn't want to say. If to love means to test, then what's wrong with me that I'm being tested? Why is it easier to suspect me than to ask? During the day, we live as if we have no nights. Max brings bread with a crispy crust and slices tomatoes evenly, so that each slice is like a solar disk. He laughs when I drop my keys. He warms his hands on my neck, and sometimes a thin metallic note wedges into this laughter. I recognize it by ear. It is the sound of unlocking. He is like a secret bell that rings only for him. Do you trust me? I once asked in the elevator when the mirrors made us both bigger and older, and the car creaked like an old album. He did not hesitate. Of course. Then why? I did not finish. The doors opened, and we were thrown out into a bright entrance where it smelled of pine from someone's air freshener. I'm afraid of confrontation. This word always falls apart in my mouth into sharp pieces. Confrontment. As a child, I hid in the bathroom when my parents hurt my voice, and yet this week I opened notes and wrote a letter. Not to him, to myself. A letter that was supposed to be a conversation about boundaries. About how trust is not a digital key, but an agreement between two living people. About how I am not his enemy, and I do not need to justify my existence on the screen I wrote and deleted, wrote and saved. And all the time I thought, how can I say it so that he hears not an accusation, but a request for tenderness towards my boundaries? In the evening, I put a glass of water and a phone on the nightstand, top down, screen to the tabletop like a shield. I knew that it wouldn't change anything. The shield is not for him, the shield is for me. Max fell asleep quickly, like a person who has learned to turn off thoughts, like light. I listened to his breathing getting into rhythm and counted. 1, 2, 3. Somewhere around 35, my own heart lost its stride. Tomorrow, I said to myself, tomorrow we'll talk. But the night does not like the word tomorrow. She loves repetitions, a click. The same as that first time I didn't open my eyes. At first, I just let the sound pass through me and go. Then, as if someone inside me took my shoulder and gently turned me to face reality, I raised myself up on my elbow. Our room was dark and bluish. The phone screen glowed next to the bed, illuminating Max's fingers and the lines on his wrist. This time, he didn't go to the bathroom. He sat next to me, leaning on the pillow like a mountainside, and scrolled. I saw his face change, tension, relief, tension again, the little wrinkle between his eyebrows that I always kissed in the morning. He didn't notice that I was awake. I sucked in a breath. My throat felt dry like a train station on a hot day. I already knew what I was going to do. No scenes, no screams. I'll reach out, take the phone, put it between us, and calmly say what I wrote in the notes. I'll say, Max, it hurts me. I want to truly trust each other, not go through a quest to check, and we'll talk. We have to talk. I turned on the nightlight. A warm circle of light melted the shadow and flooded his shoulder. Max shuddered, turned to look at me, and I saw what kind of screen he was reading. It wasn't a messenger or Instagram. It was my note, the top line of which began with the words, about boundaries and why I'm afraid to open my eyes at night. Max, I said finally, and my voice didn't break. Let's do it now. Right now. He looked at me over his phone, still reading the text, and I realized he had already read further than I had thought of. He opened his mouth slightly, as if he was about to say something simple and devastating at the same time. And at that moment, my phone vibrated in his hand. A new notification flashed on the screen, and his face changed once more, to one I had never seen before. A notification flashed on the screen, right on top of my text about boundaries. A white rectangle with words that were cut off, like a note that had fallen into a fire. I confirm the order for Saturday. Let it stay between us. The sender is a number without a name. Someone inside me clicked a switch and at the same time opened a window. An icy air of panic and a completely clear thought burst into my chest. Now everything will collapse if I choose the wrong words. Max raised an eyebrow. His eyes slid over those few words, over the smiley face, and froze on between us, and tensed as if there was a trap inside the letters. Who is it? Quietly, too quietly. I slowly extended my palm. Not to take the phone, so that he could see that my hands were empty, that I had no hiding places or pockets, but he didn't give it up. First tell me, even more quietly. Who is this, Olya? I suddenly felt offended, almost to the point of laughter. My text about boundaries looked at me from the screen, like a mirror in front of which you have someone else's name in your mouth. Who is this? But I had planned to say these words differently. Who are you next to me when I sleep? This. Ah, I swallowed. The sandpaper creaked in my throat. This is your surprise for Saturday. Max's face. He has such an open face when he's not defending himself, twitched for a second, hurt and distrustful. Then his lips pressed into a thin line. A surprise? He almost smiled, but the smile was made of iron. And between us is also a surprise? Are you sure you're not confusing a surprise with a secret? I inhaled slowly, as they teach in yoga, which I never got to. I exhaled. I didn't want to in advance. I caught myself making excuses. Dasha and I, sister faltered. His sister. We're just making arrangements, a table, a cake, people. A surprise, no name. He shook the phone like a tray of evidence. Emoticons, between us. Everything as it should be. Delivery service number, I'm quieter now. Cake, and yes, between us, and because it's a surprise you're 30, Max. He leaned back on the pillow. For about 5 seconds he looked at me as if he was counting my blinks. Then he looked away. He began to scroll the screen. I saw his thumb moving, a careful route, already accustomed to my applications. Telegram, Insta, mail. In the corners of his eyes, a stubbornness that had settled in. I hugged myself by the shoulders. I wanted to talk before all this. Delivery. Talk about what? Without looking up from the screen. About what happens at night. Now my voice was not creaky, but almost even. I felt a thin back building up in my stomach, some kind of inner adult that knows how not to make excuses. About how I wake up from the click of a charger. About how you read me while I sleep. About how I gave you access when you were scared. And now I'm scared about how this is not trust. Max anxiety is treated with anxiety. He stopped scrolling. He held the screen with his finger for a second, as if testing whether my speech would withstand his silence. He looked up. Do you think I do this because I like it? Do you think I don't want to sleep normally? He chuckled tiredly with sunken cheekbones. I woke up one day and realized that the groom I knew was a shadow. I'm still pulling myself out of that darkness, centimeter by centimeter. Sometimes I wake up and see you smiling in your sleep, and a thought flashes through my mind. To whom? Am I crazy? Maybe. But I didn't choose this. It was chosen for me. And me. I couldn't resist. I chose to be tested. I chose to live as if I were constantly taking an honesty test. He looked away. I saw his jaw muscles moving stiffly. Then he stood up abruptly, looked at the screen, and frowned again. What's this? He turned the phone towards me. On the screen, a green bar from the mail. WhatsApp, new login to WhatsApp web. Date, 2 days ago. Time, 3:11. A soap film burst inside me. Everything became very clearly audible. The refrigerator in the kitchen, the neighbor's elevator, his breathing. I took the phone from him, calmly, and pressed the notification mail opened. The letter straightened its shoulders. If this is not you, end all active sessions. Below is a button, Max. I slowly said his name. Is that you? He didn't answer right away. First he raised his head as if trying to catch a word in the air. Then he pressed his lips together. A shadow passed over his face, not from the nightlight, but another, internal one. Yes, he said, and then, unable to stand the pause, one time I just wanted to make sure that. He hesitated, his tongue searching for a safe formulation. That there's nothing there that I'll regret if I find out too late. What do you mean? I didn't raise my voice. He would have heard it anyway. Only pain sounds quieter than quiet. Too late. When is that? When did I tell you that I love you? Or when we moved in together? Or when you take my phone to the bathroom for 10 nights in a row? I did it twice. Too fast. 3. He raised his hands as if those hands could hold the truth. Yes, 3. I took pictures of the messages so that later when you say I made it all up, I can show myself that I'm not crazy. I know how it sounds like an invasion. My fingers were shaking, I tucked them under my knees. And it's like you're living in another story and I'm a set of suspicious screens. He was silent. And I didn't know which part of me was speaking, the scared girl who hates any quarrel, or the adult who is finally not ready to push herself for the sake of someone else's peace. I love you, he said suddenly, very quietly, and I'm afraid that one day I'll wake up and you won't be here. If you're so afraid of losing me, I heard tired tenderness in my voice, stop losing me at night. We sat opposite each other, separated by the warm circle of the nightlight and this letter like a barrier. The silence was dry like a cookie. Then I clicked on End All Sessions. The letter folded, the screen blinked. A green strip appeared. All sessions ended. Max turned pale, not from rage, but from a sudden emptiness, like a man whose crutch has been taken away. Let's do it this way, I said before he could answer. In the morning, we'll wake up and go not to the kitchen or the bathroom. We'll go to a man who knows how to talk to people like us. And you'll tell him all this, and I'll tell him, and we'll decide how to live. Either live or not. He bowed his head. I saw him swallowing his Adam's apple, moving. How he was doing something inside, I don't know what, to keep from falling apart. Okay, he said, in the morning. And one more thing, I added, feeling my voice grow firmer. Saturday is still a surprise. Even if you don't believe it now, I still want to do something nice for you. Not because you deserve it, but because that's the kind of person I am. And because I need to remind myself that love is not a test, but a gift. I turned off the nightlight. The room turned blue again. We lay without touching, like banks along which the same water flows. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator clicked. There was no longer a green stripe in my mail. In my head, too, I had almost fallen asleep when Max suddenly whispered in the darkness, "What if I can't?" "You can," I said, although I didn't know. "Otherwise, no need." He rolled over onto his back. I could hear his breathing slowly even out. Everything inside me hurt, but it was the kind of pain you get after a doctor's appointment, like you've finally given yourself permission to be treated. In the morning, when the coffee was still pouring in the Turk, I received a message from Dasha. "The table has been confirmed, the balloons will be. You are great." I brought the phone to my chest like a hot water bottle. Max came out of the shower, his hair dark from the water, and looked at me. That same look, with a subtle metallic note. But then he seemed to remember the conversation we had had at night and nodded to himself. "Sign up," he said. "I'll come to someone today." I dialed a number from my bookmarks. I used to save it for the future, for the very one that never comes. It turned out that it did. The therapist had a window for the evening. "In the evening," I said. "Let's go together." He nodded. He poured coffee. We drank, barely talking, and it seemed to me that the coffee smelled not just of bitterness, but of chance. I even smiled. Chances have a strange smell, and in the afternoon another mail arrived, already an unread from WhatsApp. The same green stripe, new login to WhatsApp web time. Today, 7:42. When I was washing a mug, I looked at my watch. I looked at the bathroom door where Max had just come out drying his hair. I swallowed. "Do you have anything to say before the evening?" He froze on the threshold, towel in hand, and for the first time in a long time I had a thought that made my skin crawl. What if he can't stop? Not because he doesn't want to, because he doesn't know how. His eyes darted to my phone, then back to me. He opened his mouth, closed it. He looked down, silently walked past and put the cup in the sink. "In the evening," he said without raising his eyes. "In the evening." And I realized the evening will be long. The therapist's office smelled of lavender and something else. Calm, like a Sunday without plans. Soft watercolors hung on the wall. The chairs were wide, as if they were prepared in advance not only for the bodies, but also for the words that would sit in them. A woman with a warm look introduced herself. Anna. We sat opposite each other, each in her own chair, like separate boats. Between us was a table with napkins. The thought flashed through my mind, in advance then, people often cry. "How did you decide to come?" Anna asked. I hesitated. Max sighed and began. "I check her phone at night. Sometimes during the day I know I shouldn't do this. But I'm scared, and when I'm scared, He searched for the word. "I pretend that if I find out sooner, it won't hurt so much." Anna nodded, not writing anything down. She somehow knew how to nod in such a way that it seemed not like agreement, but like that very space where the truth could sit down, take off her shoes, and stay. And you? She turned to me. I wake up to the click of the charger, I said, and my voice sounded clearer than in my head. I gave him the password because I love him, but now it seems like I was loved in exchange for access. And also, I looked at Max. This morning there was WhatsApp web in my mail again, and he said, in the evening, and I'm afraid that even if we talk, he won't stop. Anna bowed her head slightly. I suddenly wanted to trust her, simply because she was in no hurry with her words. Let's try to separate, she said. There's a fact, testing, there's an emotion, fear, and there's a story. About the last engagement. Max, when was the last time you felt safe? Real, physical safety. Max was silent for a long time. Then he moved his shoulder. Once upon a time, in St. Petersburg. We were returning home in the winter. I was carrying a pie. She was laughing because I got burned. He looked at me as if apologizing for the fact that this memory was not about me. That night, I didn't check anything, and the next morning, it was all over. She went to her mother's, and a week later, I found in her correspondence, he didn't finish. His face tightened. I hate surprises. I understand, Anna said. Your brain has linked two events, relaxed, lost, and now it protects you as best it can, with anxiety and checks. But the problem is that such a guard does not notice that this time he is breaking down the door to his own home. Home is your relationship. Olya, and what about your story? I grew up in an apartment where it was impossible to argue. The words seemed to come out on their own. Any argument became a scandal, and scandals became silence for a week. I learned to be quieter than silence, and every time Max takes my phone, that girl inside me wakes up who hides in the bathroom and counts to 100 so as not to hear the plates break. Anna put her palm to her chest. Pause. And then, simply, you both learned to survive, but now you need to learn to live. These are different sciences. She introduced a concept that I knew theoretically, but had never applied to myself. Boundaries are not walls, but lines of responsibility. Trust is not the absence of secrets, but the presence of an agreement. She proposed a security contract for a month, several rules that seem simple, but in reality are like doing 100 squats. Rule number 1, no checking of phones at all. Not even looking at the clock, not even seeing how much percent is left. If anxiety is off the charts, voice it. Don't hide it. Rule 2, honesty hour once a week. No phones, no distractions with question cards. She gave us a pack. What made you feel safe this week? Where have I hurt you with words or silence? What do you want to ask of me but are afraid to? Rule 3, individual sessions for everyone so as not to build a house out of another person. And also, Anna added, you will have to learn the language of apologies. Not, I did it because you, but I was scared and I hurt you. It's my responsibility. We went outside, like after a long movie, when the light is too bright, and it takes time for your eyes to get used to the street. Max walked next to him, his hands in his pockets. He always walks like that when he is embarrassed and doesn't know where to put his fingers. I'll try, he said. Really. He looked at me point blank, and I suddenly saw in him neither a controller nor an accuser, but a boy who at some point stopped believing in the good. Me too, I said. I won't go into the bathroom of my silence. I'll talk. The first few days were like walking on thin ice. You can hear every crack. We removed the phones from the bedroom. We bought an alarm clock with a disgusting little bell that screamed like a seagull in the morning. I put a vase in the room, and every morning I put a fresh sprig of eucalyptus in it, a ridiculous trifle, but the smell helped me breathe. Max woke up one night and apparently wanted to feel for the nightstand blindly. His hand hung in the air, then slowly fell. He clenched his fists over the blanket and whispered, I'm scared. It sounded like a victory. At our first honest meeting, we read cards. I said that I was triggered by his questions. Who wrote this, and even if it was about my mother? He said that it hurt him when I laugh while reading something on my phone and don't share. I tried sharing. Sometimes it was silly and beautiful. A kitten sneezed here, and we laughed together. He tried asking differently. I get anxious when I don't know who you can be with? It seemed to be working. Even the green stripes from the mail disappeared. On Saturday, we really did surprise him. Friends, balloons, a cake with an ugly inscription, 30 is not scary, and candles that smelled of wax and jam. Max smiled shyly, pursed his lips, hugged people as if he was afraid to crush them, and then whispered in my ear, "Thank you." I inhaled the scent of his skin and thought, my God, maybe we can do it. And then Wednesday came. I woke up at 3:42 from the silence, the kind that happens after a loud sound. The nightstand was empty. The alarm clock was blinking a square, as if it was angry nearby. Max was not there. A weak light was on in the kitchen. I went there, shuffling like an old woman, not yet having turned myself on for the day. Max was sitting at the table with his back to me, looking out the window. His phone was lying nearby. Mine, too, where we left them at night. Everything was right. Everything almost. Are you awake? I asked. He shuddered like a man caught in a thought. He turned around. He saw me as if he blinked in relief. I can't sleep, said Brad. I poured water. We drank silently. He faltered. I lost my temper when I was standing in line at the store. I took your phone from my bag, just looked at the screen. There was our chat notification. I didn't open anything, but he clenched his teeth. I said it out loud to myself. I lost my temper. You should know. My fingers grew cold and unclenched. I broke down. How much honesty there is in this, and how little salvation there is in this. If tomorrow there will be, I broke down again. I nodded. Thanks for telling me. We went back to bed and fell asleep like people who had agreed to lose a draw. And in the morning, I opened my email, mechanically to delete the newsletters, and saw a green stripe, new login to WhatsApp web. Time 3:11. The ice beneath me quietly cracked. I didn't speak up right away. Everything inside me was twisting. Maybe this is an old letter. Maybe this is nothing. I clicked. Active sessions, Chrome Windows today. The End All button already seemed familiar. I had a meeting at a co-working space during the day. I sat by the window and watched the March snow fall on the bikes. Someone laugh at the counter, a girl in a sweater with the letters NY typing so fast, as if she was rushing to her life. I wrote to Dasha. He's back on the web. I don't know what to do. I'm tired. She answered almost immediately. He also wrote to me at night. He swears he didn't come by, but I know my brother. When he's scared, he does stupid things and then says it wasn't him. Come to me in the evening. Let's talk. If anything happens, you can spend the night. I sat there, and inside me, like a pendulum, the thought swung. I want to leave and I want to stay. And I want it not to be a choice between two pains. And in the evening, I told Max, I'm at Dasha's today. He nodded too quickly, as if abdicating responsibility. Then he suddenly pressed his forehead to the doorframe and said, I'm afraid of losing you. I wasn't crying anymore. It was dry inside. I came up to him and put my palm on his neck, where the blood was close to the skin. And I'm afraid of losing myself. And I realized that I said out loud what I was afraid to think. It was warm at Dasha's. The hallway smelled of apple pie. The cat sniffed my shoes and disappeared under the sofa. We sat in the kitchen like two sisters. Legal and by choice, I told her everything. Dasha listened, silently without, and I told you so. Then she opened the drawer and took out an envelope. He asked me to give this to you on the weekend, she said. He wanted to make it beautiful. But it seems that your beautiful and his beautiful live at different times. She put the envelope in front of me. I felt something between fear and curiosity rise up inside me. There was a postcard in the envelope. On the cover was a photo booth photo of Max and me last fall, funny with crooked cardboard crowns. Inside were neat, slightly slanted letters. I don't know how to trust, and that's not about you, that's about me, but I want to learn. If you agree to marry me, I promise to learn. I promise to stop checking and start asking. I promise to hold your hand instead of your phone. I promise, Max. Under the postcard is a small box. I didn't open it. I sat and looked at the words. I I promise, and suddenly I felt right now that I promise is not the same as I can. That a marriage proposal does not cure panic nights just as a band-aid does not cure pneumonia. He's good, Dasha said, looking into her cup, but his good is wounded. I love my brother, but I wouldn't want my life to depend on whether he breaks down today or not. We sat in silence. The cat nuzzled my knees. Somewhere in the next room, a clock was quietly ticking. At night, already lying on the couch, I opened WhatsApp. There, at the very top, was my own message to Max. Sent. Not by me. I'm at Dasha's. We talked. I'm wondering if I'm being too harsh. Maybe I'm being too dramatic. I love you. I didn't write these words. Half an hour ago, I wrote another one. I'll be at Dasha's tomorrow. My heart sank. The screen of my laptop lying on the table lit up next to me. On it was a gray WhatsApp web window, into which a message had just dropped. I raised my palms to my lips and realized he still had an active session. He could be writing on my behalf. Was it now, or earlier, or tomorrow? I clicked log out of all devices, and for the first time in all these days, I didn't feel relief, only the need to choose. I took the box. Opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, thin, gold, with a tiny sparkle. The shape I would have chosen myself, I put it back. Max called once at night. I didn't pick up. He wrote, "Are you at Dasha's? I love you." I answered, "Yes, and I love myself," and turned off the phone. In the morning, I returned home when he was still asleep. The room was the same, a bedside table, a stupid alarm clock, eucalyptus. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked out the window for a long time. Then I woke him up. "We need a break," I said. He sat up like a man who had been pushed from the inside. He put his hands in his pockets straight away, even in a home t-shirt. He does this movement. Then he took out his palms and placed them on his knees, as Anna had taught him. "For how long?" Hoarsely. "Enough so that you go to Anna alone. Enough so that you do what you promised in the postcard without promising me. Enough so that I hear in you not I broke down but I coped, and if not, then forever." I saw how he shrank, how the boy in him was offended, how the adult in him for the first time nodded. "Okay," he said. And at that moment, I believed him. And then I stopped, because this "okay" had already happened many times. I packed my backpack, a few things, books, a diary. I left the ring on the nightstand next to the alarm clock. I hung a note on the eucalyptus. "You can't test me. You can love me." I turned around at the threshold. He was sitting bent over and looking at his palms. I wanted to rush over and hug him. I wanted to close the door behind me. I chose the second. In the elevator, I pressed 1 and caught my reflection. My eyes were red, but my gaze was direct. The doors began to shrink, and at that moment, the phone in my pocket rang. A message from me, to me. "Come back, I understand everything." I turned everything off. I closed my eyes, and the elevator door closed softly. The break turned out to be not silence, but noise, in which I heard myself for the first time. I stayed with Dasha for a week. The cat got used to being on my lap. We watched stupid TV series in the evening. And it was terribly nice to laugh at nothing. I went to Anna alone. At first I just cried, not loudly, but as if water was flowing out of me after a long swim. Then I started to talk not about him, but about myself. "I'm afraid that by setting a boundary, I'll become bad," I said at the third session. "That being good means always giving in." I seemed to have confused love and compromise. Anna smiled with the corners of her eyes. "You don't take away someone else's freedom when you say no. You give back yours." I walked the streets, and the city treated me kindly. A cafe would slip me a free table by the window. Minibuses would arrive right away. A boy from the neighborhood gave me a candy at the bus stop. "Just like that, it will be delicious for you." I learned to live without the constant internal "don't offend me," and it turns out that this didn't make me a monster. Max wrote, "At first, often I made an appointment with Anna. Today was hard. I deleted WhatsApp web. Do you want screenshots?" I didn't want screenshots. I wanted to not need screenshots. Then, less often, I lost it in my head, but not in my hands. I remembered how I once kept silent for a week and thought it was strength. Today I didn't take your phone when it was lying on the table, and I felt bitter and proud at the same time. There was a lot of I in these messages, and for the first time it didn't irritate me. Maybe now, he finally lives in the first person we met once a week at Anna's. Together we sat in our boat chairs, and Anna asked simple questions that gave us goosebumps. Where in the body does your anxiety live? Under the ribs. What do you want to hear from him when you're scared? The truth. What kind? The one in which he is, and not me. We learned to say not, you got me down, but I got scared when I saw. And also, to listen, it turned out that this is a separate muscle. In the fourth week, he said, I haven't been in for a month. I was holding on, like on a horizontal bar, and I realized that every day is a little easier and sometimes harder, and that I need help not only from your love. I continued to go to Anna alone. I nodded. We were sitting in a coffee shop. The barista was drawing leaves on his cappuccino. His phone was on the table. Mine was too. I didn't hate them. They were just objects. I said, I'm not ready to go back right away. I want to go back in parts first. Dinners then, weekend sleepovers then, keys, and only then life. I don't want to live on the edge of all or nothing anymore. He looked at me as if I had offered him a strange but fair traffic rule. He nodded, and that nod was not a concession. It was agreement. That Saturday, we had our first dinner together in our apartment, without living, just eating. He had cleaned the bedroom in advance, as if respecting the space I had not yet entered. A bright lamp was burning in the kitchen, and the tomatoes were again lying in even slices. I brought eucalyptus. I put it in a vase. We ate, talked about the news, about how Dasha's cat had learned to carry a toy mouse in his teeth, about how Anna had told him, you don't have to. Trust 100% to love 100%. And somewhere in the middle of dinner, he said, slightly hesitating, I then sent myself screenshots from your correspondence by email. He didn't look at me. I deleted everything. If you want, I'll show you the deleted ones too. But I understand that this is not about evidence. I want you to know this. Not because you'll expose me, but because I admit it. I was hit with the chill of memory, the same one, the night one with the green stripes, the bathroom, the clicks. But the chill quickly passed, as if someone had placed a palm on it. Thank you, I said. It's true. He nodded. We finished our tea, and suddenly I realized where my little revenge would be on the world that taught me to curry favor. I took a small white card out of my bag, the one Anna gave for the hour of honesty. On the back, I had written in advance with a felt-tip pen, I will no longer live in such a way as to prove that I am good. My good is mine. I put the card on the fridge under the magnet from Sharm el-Sheikh, and the card looked like it had always been there. What is it? Max asked, already smiling. A little afraid, but smiling. My rule. I smiled back. And you know, I still haven't decided about the ring. I looked into his eyes, but I know for sure I won't say yes as a life preserver. I can only say yes as a choice mine yours was. He fell silent as seriously as he had never seemed to be silent before. Then, very quietly, I don't want my offer to be a lock, I want it to be a key. Even if you don't take it now. We lived like this for a while, in parts. It's surprisingly similar to learning to walk again after an injury. First across the room, holding onto the wall, then you go out into the yard, then you try to run. There were setbacks. One day, he bit his lip and snapped, "Who called you last night?" And it was the alarm clock from the flower watering app. One day, I slammed the closet door, as if it was his fault that I was scared. Then I apologized. But gradually, we became more than the same old story. One evening, Dasha invited us to a family dinner. We arrived, and I suddenly noticed how differently Max hugged his sister. He didn't cling, he just held her. They laughed at the table, there was mushroom soup, and somewhere in the middle of dinner, Dasha raised her glass. For the fact that sometimes the most difficult conversations become the kindest decisions, she winked at me. I smiled, and inside there was a quiet warmth. We didn't hurt each other publicly. We didn't make a show out of other people's tears. We did something much more difficult. We grew something new. Another month passed. Anna gradually increased the distance between our sessions. We already slept together sometimes, by agreement, with phones in the hallway, with a seagull alarm clock that screamed from the living room. One night I woke up, not from a click and not from emptiness, from the silence in which fear was not hidden. The moon lay on the windowsill. Like a postcard, Max was breathing calmly, evenly next to me, like a sea without wind. I lay and counted, not one, two, three, but without numbers, only by the soft waves of his breaths, and suddenly I thought, maybe this is what trust looks like, not as courage but as rest. In the morning over coffee, he handed me a box. Not that one, but a different, smaller one. I looked at him questioningly. He shrugged his shoulders, suddenly embarrassed, and smiled. It's not a ring, don't be afraid, it's... He scratched the back of his head. It's the password to my account. Just kidding. We both laughed. It's actually an empty box. He turned it over, and on the bottom was written in felt-tip pen, "It will lie here empty until we both decide together what to put in it." I opened it, closed it, understood it, and burst out laughing. "Idiot," I said tenderly. "A beautiful idiot." "I learn from the best," he replied, gesturing with his eyes at the magnet on the refrigerator. "From people who write their own rules." A week later, I returned home for good. We took the old nightstand out onto the balcony, the same one on which the phone lay face down like a shield. We put a low bench in its place and put a stack of books on it. We sent the alarm clock tea to Dasha, let it wake up the cat. It became quieter in the bedroom, as if someone had turned off the alarm lights. The ring, the first, gold, I took from the nightstand at the same time. Not on my finger, in the jewelry box. Sometimes I take it out and hold it in my palm, like a pebble from the sea in which the sun is stuck. It does not press and does not promise. It just is. Sometimes strangers write to me on Instagram. Sometimes at night the world has not ceased to be the world. The difference is that now I do not live forever in the explain yourself pose. If a message comes, I say, "Spam has arrived." He nods. Sometimes he comes up and kisses me on the top of my head. Sometimes he asks, "Will you show me?" And I say no. And he smiles shyly and says, "Right." This, it seems, is the freedom that does not destroy. At the last For Now session with Anna, we were already sitting close. Our boats were standing side by side. Anna asked, "What do you take with you from our work?" I thought Max, too. Then I said, "That love is not transparency. It is clarity." Max added, "And that trust is not access. It is a contract." Anna nodded, the way people nod when they know that we didn't learn this phrase by heart, but rather arrived at it on foot. We went outside, and suddenly it started to rain. The first summer rain. Generous Max raised his face to the sky, and I, to him. He looked at me, then, somewhere into the space where the roads converge, and said, "I'm still scared sometimes, but now when I'm scared I look for your hand, not your phone." I extended my palm to him. He took it, and I felt how calmness spread through my fingers, my wrist, my whole body, not loud, not theatrical, not forever. Just now it's enough. In the evening at home, I put another card on the refrigerator, next to the previous one. It said, "My little revenge on the past is to live as if no one is checking me." We went to bed, without a seagull alarm clock, without clicks and green stripes, without promises of forever. I didn't count my breaths, I just closed my eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep like a person who is not guarded or suspected, but simply loved. And this was the very emotional point that I had been putting off for so long. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Quiet living, my